In the remote wilderness of the Ural Mountains in Russia, a chilling mystery has captivated the world for decades. Known as the Dyatlov Pass Incident, it's a tragic tale of 9 skilled hikers who ventured into the unknown, never to return. What happened to them remains one of the most enduring unsolved mysteries in modern history. Our story begins in January 1959 in the Soviet Union. 10 hikers, mostly students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, set out on an ambitious trek through the unforgiving Siberian landscape. Despite the young age, their leader, 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, was experienced, as were his friends. The group was skilled in survival, familiar with harsh conditions, and had faced difficult terrains before. Their destination was a mountain called Otorten, which in the local Mansi language means "don't go there." Otorten was classified as a Category 3 route, the most difficult category there is. Their journey was carefully planned. On January 23rd, they departed by train, followed by buses and trucks, as they made their way through towns and snow-covered villages, and finally reached the remote settlement of Vizhai. The plan was to reach Mount Otorten, complete the hike, and return to civilization by February 12th. Before the hike to Mount Otorten, one of the students, Yuri Yudin, came ill and returned back home. Without knowing it, in a few days, he would be the last person to see the group of 9 alive. As they progressed, the conditions grew more intense. On January 31st, they reached the base of Kholat-Syakhl, a mountain whose name means "dead mountain" in the language of the local Mansi people. They set up camp on a slope just a few hundred meters from the summit. It was here, on February 1st, that the group made their final camp. They took one last series of photos before night fell. According to their journals, they had even discussed returning to celebrate with friends. But little did they know, they would never leave that mountainside. On February 12th, the group was supposed to contact their families. But days passed with no word. A week later, on February 20th, the concerned relatives alerted authorities, and a rescue mission was launched. What they found would haunt everyone involved. It took nearly a week of intense searching before the first trace of the group was found. On February 26th, at the hikers' campsite, rescuers came upon a sight that they didn't expect. The hikers' tent was found abandoned and half buried in snow. Strangely, it had been torn open from the inside, as if they had fled in a hurry. Tracks from bare or lightly clothed feet led away from the tent and down towards the forest edge, over 500 meters away, indicating the hikers had fled with little to no clothing in sub-zero temperatures. Just beyond the tree line, rescuers found the first 2 bodies, those of Yuri Krivonishenko and Yuri Doroshenko, lying near the remains of a small fire. Both men were barefoot and dressed only in their underwear, a bizarre detail given the harsh, freezing environment. Their hands were severely burned, suggesting that in their desperation, they attempted to light a fire to stay warm. Nearby branches were broken up to 15 feet high, hinting that one of them may have climbed the tree to escape, or possibly to spot the camp in the darkness. Not far from them, 3 more bodies were discovered, including Igor Dyatlov himself. They were spaced out in a line leading from the tree back to the tent, as if they had been trying to return but succumbed to the cold along the way. The other 4 hikers weren't found until 2 months later, in May, when the snow began to thaw. The last 2 remaining bodies, hidden beneath 13 feet of snow in a small ravine, were in the most mysterious state. Alexander Zolotaryov was missing eyes, and Lyudmila Dubinina had severe internal injuries, multiple broken ribs, with Dubinina suffering a major chest trauma comparable to a car crash. Strangely, she was also missing her tongue and parts of her lips. Forensics found no external wounds to match the injuries, as if the damage had occurred internally without visible signs of impact. Furthermore, traces of radioactivity were found on some of the hikers' clothing. But what could have caused such bizarre and severe trauma without external wounds? And why did some of them have radioactivity on their clothing? The mystery only deepens as experts started looking into possible explanations. Over the years, researchers, conspiracy theorists, and investigators have put forward a range of theories to explain what happened on that terrifying night. Each has its strengths and its gaps. Theory 1. Avalanche. One of the most popular and logical theories is an avalanche. According to this explanation, a sudden collapse of snow triggered panic, prompting the hikers to cut their way out of the tent in a hurry and flee down the slope. The pressure from the snow might explain the internal injuries found on Zolotaryov and Dubinina. This theory gained traction in 2020 when Russian authorities officially closed the case, attributing the deaths to a slab avalanche, a sheet of snow breaking loose and sliding down the mountain. However, skeptics argue that this theory has flaws. There was no evidence of an avalanche when rescuers arrived, and the tent was found partially standing, which would be unlikely if an avalanche had swept over it. Furthermore, the Dyatlov group set up camp in an area considered too shallow for an avalanche, adding another layer of doubt to this theory. Theory 2. Infrasound, the wind effect. The infrasound theory proposes that strong winds blowing around the mountain created low-frequency sound waves, known as infrasound. These waves are inaudible, but can induce feelings of dread, nausea, and irrational panic. Could this have driven the hikers into a frenzied state, causing them to flee the tent? While this could explain the initial panic, it doesn't account for the physical injuries. And more puzzling, it's unlikely that all 9 hikers would respond to infrasound in the same extreme way, leading some experts to view this theory as incomplete. Theory 3. Secret military testing. One of the most unsettling theories involves military testing. According to local reports, strange orange lights or orbs were seen in the sky around the time of the incident. These lights could have been flares or missiles from Soviet military exercises. Some researchers believe the group accidentally stumbled into a test zone and were hit by an explosion or sonic blast. This could explain both the radioactivity and some of the traumatic injuries. Yet there's no official record of a test in that area at that time, and no evidence of an explosion near the campsite. Some also wonder why, if this were true, the Soviet government would allow any investigation at all, although others point out the Soviet Union's history of secrecy. Theory 4. Indigenous Mansi or Yeti attack. Perhaps the most wild theories involve attacks by the local Mansi people, or even a mythical creature like a Yeti. The Mansi were indigenous to the region, but there was no record of conflict between the Mansi and hikers. Moreover, no Mansi tracks or signs of human attack were found near the bodies. Then there's the Yeti hypothesis. Some point to a photo recovered from a camera at the campsite showing a shadowy figure in the snow, though many believe it's simply a blurry image of a group member. Despite its lack of evidence, the idea of a cryptic attack still captures the Yeti believers' imagination worldwide. Theory 5. Hypothermia and paradoxical undressing. Finally, some believe the explanation may be a tragic combination of natural factors and hypothermia-induced confusion. Paradoxical undressing, where those suffering from hypothermia feel an intense sensation of warmth, could explain why some of the hikers removed their clothes. Yet, even if some succumb to the cold and disorientation, this theory doesn't explain the severe injuries, radioactivity, or why experienced hikers would leave the tent so abruptly. The Dyatlov Pass incident endures as one of the most mysterious tragedies in modern history. Was it a natural disaster, a psychological anomaly, or something far more sinister? Perhaps we will never know. What remains are the fragmented pieces of a puzzle, a story that will continue to haunt those seeking answers in the cold, unforgiving silence of the Dead Mountain.